Still wearing it. Ain't going nowhere. Ain't hiding. Yeah, we got eliminated. So what? Not here to talk about the Lakers at all, but I just wanted to start the video that way. I'm actually here to talk about the rivals, the Celtics. Not really basketball stuff, unfortunately. And I'm a little late on this, but I've been wanting to get back onto it because I felt I had a point of view on this, or maybe it saw something that I hadn't seen anybody else point out. And I thought it was key in understanding all of this. So Kyrie Irving, of course, at the end of the Brooklyn Celtics series, had a moment where he went into the center court and stomped on Lucky, the Celtics emblem. And, you know, it was a guy, they said it was possibly not even related, but of course it was related. Homeboy saw him do that, threw a bottle at him. So that's what happened. He threw a bottle at him, and they arrested the guy, blah, blah, blah. Kevin Garnett has come out and said, yo, more or less, not cool. I didn't appreciate it. You know, don't stop disrespecting the Celtics before somebody gets hurt. More or less, you know, which I thought was way too far for what this is. Way too far. But that's essentially what Kevin Garnett was saying. He was saying you're disrespecting all the players who've ever played for the Celtics before you, and etc. And you know, it's something they take a lot of pride in. Kevin Garnett is putting on for his squad. You know, I get it, but to say somebody gonna get hurt, that's corny, bro. That's corny. So that's the first thing I want to say, and that's one of my favorite players of all time. I love Kevin Garnett, but you didn't shine right there, brother. You didn't shine there. You can say you felt he disrespected you and disrespected the franchise, but to go as far as to say somebody can get hurt, this is an era where black men are shooting each other. And, you know, you need to understand that Kyrie Irving was doing something symbolic that meant something to him, and it wasn't, in my mind, solely about the franchise necessarily. And that's why I've come here today, because I haven't heard anybody say this. Kyrie Irving, and excuse me, you guys, I'm gonna eat because I'm starving and I'm not gonna let my food get cold, but it wouldn't be the first time I've done that. But Kyrie Irving, he stepped on the eye, the winked eye of Lucky. And I start thinking about the symbolism. Kyrie Irving is very much about symbolism. If you look at any of his posts on IG, some of the things that he's posted in the past, you understand where he kind of comes from when it comes to symbolism and things of that nature. That he pays very close attention to stuff like that. And everything he does has some symbolism attached to it. Everything he says seems to have some symbolism attached to it, to me, etc., etc. It's more than one meaning to things that he says, things like that. He's one of those type of people. He stepped on Lucky's winked eye. And where my mind goes, I'm going to tell you the truth. And I don't know if anybody else ever said this. I don't know if anyone else ever felt this way. I'd imagine you have. Especially in the 80s, when the Celtics-Laker rivalry was going on. There was a lot of racial tension going on in regards to that. We got documentaries on all of that. You can go check it out. Quite fascinating to learn about that era. But the thing about the Lucky emblem is that he is winking. And what you do have is a bunch of black athletes running back and forth, back and forth, right? For your entertainment. And he is a white Caucasian man. That's what the emblem is. A white Caucasian man with a cane and his leg crossed, and he's winking at you. Yeah, kind of can give it to us, and I want you to step into a black person's perspective as it pertains to being on the defensive about being exploited, being put on display. You know, the type of connotations that our history has, and the type of realities that we face as a people. You got to understand that we're sensitive to how we're being viewed, to people seeing us as physical specimens as opposed to both all three body, mind, and soul beings. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you haven't even seen us as human beings, so you got to understand we're kind of sensitive to that kind of stuff, and we look at things a certain way as to where you may say, "Oh, it's just an emblem. Stop being stupid." I look at it and say that's a white man winking at me like he's an overseer as I'm running back and forth for his enjoyment. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I think that's exactly what Kyrie Irving was stomping on, that winked eye. I think Kyrie Irving looked at that winked eye every day and felt a way about that when he played for the Celtics. I think he probably felt a way about it before he even got there. But probably seeing that emblem probably made him feel a way. Just based on the type of person that he's displayed himself in being, some of the things that he's pointed out, like some of his conversations, the way that he goes about himself, yeah, he's exactly the type of person who would look at that wink and say, it bumps my spirit, I'm not feeling that. Now, this could be me projecting myself upon him. Maybe he's just stumbling on the emblem like on some superficial stuff. Like, you know what? As it seems, I didn't like how things went in Celtics land. I don't like how these people treat me and booing me. Stump on this emblem, and that's all it is to it. But no, he stumped on the eye. He made very, 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 very damn well sure that he stumped on the eye. And there's something to that. I promise you there is. I promise you there is. Maybe it has to do with my little theory. Maybe it has something to do with something else. But I can promise you this. The fact that that's a white emblem with a white guy winking, there's something to that. I promise. I promise you there is. And look, I've never been to Boston. I've known a friend in my past who was from Boston. And she was white, and we had a great friendship. I've since lost touch with her, but she was one of my favorite people. But she told me herself she had no black friends. She didn't know any black people. I was the first black person she actually ever befriended. Like, literally. And that spoke volumes to me based on what I had already heard about Boston. It kind of drove home the point that maybe there's a real disconnect there between my people and that place. Now, we can sit here and say all that we want about places we've never been. I can sit here and say, oh, I've heard this, I heard that, but I can say this. The athletes that have played there in Boston, a lot of them have good things to say, but a lot of them have these types of things to say, to where they weren't treated fairly. They didn't like how they were treated as black people. They didn't like some of the stuff that came out of the mouths of some of the fans. Both opponents and people who played on these teams, these Celtics teams, have said things like this. Are they all lying? Or does Boston have an issue? Does the city of Boston have an issue with race relations? Is that a conversation that needs to be had in your city? Bostonians, is that something that needs to be had? Because as a person from Los Angeles, my perception is that's a racist city. It's an elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to say that. But I have to. Someone needs to say it, because if they're ever going to shake that connotation, a conversation needs to be had. If you don't want to be represented that way, Boston, it's time to step out in front and make sure that you're not. Because these athletes, they're saying, yo, people don't mess with us like that. People like Kyrie Irving, who represented y'all, he said, nah. There's several others, too, who said, nah. And look, I'm not one of those African-American people that don't feel white people should be proud of themselves or have pride in themselves or stick with each other and have their people close. Like, my people can be close with each other and still love other people. Mexican people can be close with one another and love other people. Asian people, you know what I'm saying? It's only awful because of the racism and the evil history that's attached to it. I can perceive a world where a bunch of great white people can stand together as great white people and still show love and feel loved by everybody. It should not have the evil Aryan type of energy with it, and hopefully we can get to a space where we're not looking at one another that way in general. But for now, we're still in some of these spaces where we're having these type of energies and conversations and misunderstandings and lack of communications, and at the end of the day, perception is overtaking reality as it pertains to us going to places, having conversations with people, and finding out, rather than just hearing stuff like I'm sitting here telling you I've heard. based on maybe one or two conversations, it's like, look, if there's a conversation to be had, we need to have it about the perception. And if there's a conversation to be had about that perception as it pertains to the energy that Boston is receiving from outsiders, it needs to be had either way, because this Kyrie Irving thing brings me just to that particular space. And the fact of the matter is, when we're sensitive to all different types of things, as it pertains to sports teams, particularly Native American teams that have been taken Native American heritage and have taken emblems and different types of things from Native American history, or maybe even made fun of Native American history with their names. We have held them to task and have asked them to make changes. The Redskins obviously are no more, and we'll see if the Cleveland Indians or other teams will follow. I don't know how that goes. But maybe there's a conversation to be had about other emblems as well. Maybe there's a conversation to be had about the Celtics' lucky emblem. Maybe. I'm just saying. Because if I have eloquated to you that there's a slight part of my brain that's uncomfortable with it, then I'm willing to bet there are other people that may actually feel that way as well. Now, it's not so uncomfortable that I can't look at it. It ain't so uncomfortable that I can't, I'm actually upset. But I'm saying that Kyrie Irving made me realize by stepping on the eye that, yeah, for the longest time, there's always been a little bit of uncomfort about that lucky emblem. I can't quite put a finger on it, but it's just something uncomfortable about a bunch of brothers running around representing lucky. It just doesn't feel right to me. Never did, really. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping, but it don't feel right when Kevin Garnett comes to the defense of Lucky either. I know some other analysts have alluded to that as well, and some other people of color have alluded to that as well. It don't feel right to us. There's something wrong about that. Can't quite put a finger on it, but it ain't the same as him stomping on a Laker emblem. It ain't the same as him as somebody stomping on his Cowboy emblem. It don't feel the same. It don't feel like just disrespect to the team. It feels like something else is brewing underneath the emblem and underneath Kyrie Irving's representation of stepping on the eye of that emblem. And that's the gist of what I wanted to provide you guys. That perspective. Like, I see it a certain way as a black person. And I think Kevin Garnett needed to hear that too. He needs to understand that this is an angle too, bro. And because all of us are looking at it from this angle, you probably should have stayed out of that. You probably should have left that to Larry. You should have called Larry and let Larry say that. You should have called Kevin and let Kevin make funnel that message through. Because it looked funny coming from you. It's not that I don't understand where you're coming from, because I do. As a Laker fan, I definitely do. But you got to see the broader scope here in regards to what's going on there. There's something else. My name is BDF44. If I came off as ignorant or race baity, it's not my intention. But I do want to provide perspective, because I think there is a disconnect between a lot of people who are of color and a lot of people who are not. When we point out things and say, yo, that makes our feelings hurt, or yo, that offends us, or yo, that I'm uncomfortable with this, I think the response genuinely is an eye roll as opposed to listening to figure out why. And what I was hoping would happen here is that you would sit here and listen and figure out why. It's not just me sitting up here saying I'm pointing at the white man, I'm mad at you. I'm saying, look, there are some things here that give off a vibe to me, or give off something that eerily triggers me as an African American. There's something about a white man winking at me that doesn't feel of love. And that's the gist of my message here. My name is BDF44, and I'm out.